I know you. Welcome back to Big Friar's Garage. Today, we're going to get started going to talk about mocking up the engine, getting things figured out with placement, what you should basically be doing first. So it's a little early yet. Let's hit the light switch. So yesterday, I put the motor in place, used my ceiling winch. I checked out where it needed to go for the gas tank, and I cut the tank. But before I did any of that, the first things I started wanting to do was figure out, should I wire it first? No, because I don't know exactly where all the wiring is going to land. So that's not where you want to start. Second, where am I going to put a radiator? Well, the radiator's awfully big. It's going to look stupid sticking out back here, and it's going to get crushed if I back into something. So I didn't want to go that route. If I put it up here, that's pretty common. People put their radiators up in here or down in here. But if something would happen to it, my daughter's sitting right here, and her friends are sitting here. And that's the last thing I want, is for that thing to burn them. So I decided I'm going to put it at an angle right here, going all the way across, and then I have a shield that goes over this area behind the seats, protect them from anything that would steam out of there or whatever. And that way the radiator will be protected from any kind of rocks, debris, or getting banged into something. So mocking up is the first things you're going to want to do. Figure out where things are going to go, take a lot of measurements, think about it for a long time. The battery that was sitting here, I never liked that because they put it right into the gas tank at the manufacturer of this dune buggy factory, sand car. So I figured with the engine here, it's going to weigh a little bit more. I needed to counterbalance because I don't want to be doing wheelies, and I don't want to have the weight difference on my back wheels being too far back, because it's going to make it hard to off-road. So I'm adding some weight back there that sticks out back a little bit. So I decided I'll move my battery up front. Now, as far as the gas tank, I put my adapter plate on. I put the bolts that are sticking out that go into the transmission bell housing on, and I swung the engine into place, bumped it up against the gas tank, and made a mark with a Sharpie where I would want the opening or the dent in the gas tank to be. Then I cut it, placed the engine in, figured out exactly how far back that cut on the bottom should be, because that's going to determine my depth. This cut here doesn't really matter because it's up above the engine. So now I can just lay in a plate of aluminum that comes up, angles out, and then fill the sides in and TIG all that. What I haven't decided yet is exactly where I want my fuel pickup tube, my rollover tube for breather and rollover, and my return line. But what I do know is that when I'm putting those in, I can get a perfect measurement right to the bottom of the tank if I install them before I weld this in, I can have all the room to just look at the tube and make sure it goes to the bottom where I need it. So starting off by doing some stuff like this, planning, figuring things out, that's the way to go. Then, it's early in the morning, I haven't moved all the junk yet, so get the old kids' bicycles out of here. That's the rack that I put together for the engine. So I put my exhaust in place. I think this is going to be a great exhaust for the dunes, but due to the fact that it's virtually just an open exhaust, there are places that require spark arresters, places like the cinders, so this exhaust isn't going to work for those places. The other thing is, this exhaust sticks out past my frame, and if I back into something, I'm going to crush this thing. Third, I'm not trying to let every cop know that I'm out driving my dune buggy. And that's what this exhaust is going to do. So it's going to be excellent for the dunes. I don't think it's going to work for me for the street. So I'm going to redesign another exhaust to come out more as a stock style, and then right here it'll have a pipe that comes down, curves back there, and comes forward with an actual muffler sitting in this area here. But as you can see on my buggy, this engine fits with just enough room. I'm going to have to extend my ball hitch out, build me a new plate, and bring my ball hitch out to here. But the engine went in perfect. It has about an inch here, and I'm going to weld in a plate. Well, no, I'm going to bolt a plate onto here and weld on some motor mounts. Might actually use these. I haven't totally decided. I'm thinking of you know, putting the plate somewhere in here and then welding on a solid motor mount here that's removable from this piece and from there, so that if I want to get them apart, I can. One of the other issues that I want to solve, as you can see, if you get down here just right, there you go. I got a 1/4 inch the oil pan sticks below my bars, and that's where my skid plate needs to be. I don't want that oil pan down there. So what I'm going to do is take that bolt there on this transmission cross member. I'm going to take these out, take this cross member off, and I'm going to oval that hole down a little bit and then weld the top back in so that this plate moves up a 1/2 inch. So that will angle my transmission a 1/2 inch up. It shouldn't be enough to affect the CV joints. They got plenty of room left. I figured out that I should be able to move the transmission about 1 1/4 inches up before it starts bothering anything. Things that bothers is CV joint angles and the shifting bar. But once I do that, it will raise that up, and because of the way it works, it's going to raise a 1/2 inch there. By the time it gets out here, it's going to raise this a little over 3/4 of an inch. I'm hoping for 1 inch, and that'll put me well above this bar, at which point I won't ever have to worry about the engine getting hit on a rock. I did have my skid plate hit hard enough a few times that it banged into the bottom of my VW engine, so trying to avoid that on there. Now this is what I'm talking about. When I raise the transmission front, it'll tilt. It's going to affect this by basically pushing this forward, and that's going to change my shifting. So I can't go far, otherwise I'll throw out my shifter, and then I'll have to readjust the shifter and stuff if I need to. So we don't want to do that if we don't have to. But basically, that's where we're at with that. Now, I'm going to have people that are interested in how did I cut the gas tank without exploding. Well, I took it out, I put the garden hose in that, and I let the whole tank fill up till it ran out, then I dumped it. I did that 3 times. Then I stood the tank on end with that at the top, put the garden hose in, let it fill all the way up, and then while it was running and filled, you got to figure there's fumes in the tank, and that's what's going to explode. But if it's full of water, it's pushing out those fumes, and there's no way a spark underwater is going to ignite fumes that have no oxygen mixed with them. So while it was standing on end with a garden hose running in it, I drilled through it. Now the other thing is I used the drill bits, and the aluminum are not going to spark because aluminum doesn't create sparks. So as long as you're not creating a bunch of heat, you should be fine. I wouldn't go after it with a grinder, but I drilled a couple of holes, then I ran my Sawzall while it was running water, and yes, it was squirting water out at me, but I ran my Sawzall down it and cut the hole out. Now when I go to weld it, I'm going to clean this all out with soap and water. I can get my hand in there and wipe it all down with a Scotch-Brite pad, get all the old residue of fuel off. Then, because it's open, it's not going to explode. It can't build pressure. I'm just going to toss a rag in there that's on fire, let it burn off anything that could burn, and then when I go to weld it, hook a tube to the exhaust pipe of the truck, put the tube onto there, and fill this with carbon monoxide from the truck. Then I can weld it. Or we could fill it with argon and weld it. But the bottom line is, if the cap's off and I've been burning it, there's no way it's going to blow up anyway. So we'll get that done. We'll weld that up. What else? Plan out your air stuff. I'm planning on keeping my air filter clear up out of the way, and I'd like to reuse this. So what I'm thinking about doing is building a box basically like this tank. Maybe I'll grab an old tank and make it so that you can open it, put your air cleaner in, close it. The air cleaner will still attach, but then the hose can attach to the box. And that way I can still have a pre-cleaner, and it'll virtually be like my original canisters for the other carburetor setup. So basically, tube will hook here, air filter will be inside, there will be a way to seal it closed, and that should work perfect and give me plenty of air. So for now, today, I'm going to take that tank off and go down to the welding store, get the proper TIG wire, stuff like that for that aluminum. And then after that, I just gotta make my motor mounts, so I'll probably do those today also. So we'll see you in a few.